Ok, tengo todo, my notes, los proyectos, cosas que quiero hacer, me tengo a mí mismo, tengo mi té, está bien frío, porque será que ustedes tienen dos niveles, o te queman o están súper frío. Right, ok. Vamos. I'm not wearing lipstick. Excuse me. Right, that is better. Hi guys, and welcome to episode 41 of the Crochet Cakes podcast. I can't believe it's been 2 weeks since I podcasted last. It feels like it's been a much shorter time, but the last time I podcasted was the 21st of February, and today is Friday the 9th of February, I believe. So that means my birthday's coming up, Monday, 12th of March. Not sure how I feel about that though. If anybody asks, I am 25. I'm just kidding. So a lot has happened since I spoke to you last. First and foremost, yesterday was International Women's Day. So congratulations and hugs and love to all the wonderful crafting women and non-crafting women who watch this podcast. Muchas felicidades por el Día Internacional de la Mujer. Espero que hayan celebrado que son mujeres y que sigan celebrando que son mujeres. So, I hope you've celebrated well and truly that you are a woman, and that you keep celebrating that you are a woman, because I'm gonna get a tiny bit personal here. As direct quote from a book I'm reading that Emma from Potter and Bloom podcast talked about in one of her podcasts, we bleed for 5 to 7 days a week and we don't die. That makes us superheroes. Yes, it does. So, in honor of International Women's Day, and because I think this is one of my favorite women in my life, I have printed out an avatar that Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast so kindly designed. So if you are missing Mom on my podcasts, you can print it out and, pin it next to the screen. And if you are missing me on Mom's podcast, you can just flip it over and there I am. I just think it's great. So, kudos to the best woman in my life. Strongest woman I know, and my inspiration for a lot of things. Also, please imagine my sister on this other side. I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but we used to call ourselves the 3 C's because my name's Claire, Mom's name is Caroline, and my sister's name is Selimar. And Selimar starts with a C. So we all start with a C. So I kind of told Mom that if I ever have a daughter, her first name has to begin with a C because we have to continue with the power of the 3 C's. But yes, let's get on with the usual business of podcasting, which would be, as I've said, my name is Clarisbeth. I am a Puerto Rican. I am from Puerto Rico originally, but right now I am coming to you from Florida. Yeah, Florida. I think we've mentioned that in the last podcast. This is a crafting podcast. So if you've never tuned in, thank you so much for checking us out for the first time. We are a crafting podcast, a wonderful community of crafters, which you can follow if you follow the hashtag Crochet Cakes podcast. It's open to anybody who wants to keep participating in our crafting community. So just tag hashtag Crochet Cakes podcast on Instagram, and you can share your makes with everybody. You can join the Ravelry group, which you can find just by searching Crochet Cakes podcast in the groups tab on Ravelry. And you can follow me on Instagram and Elo as Crochet Cakes, and also on Ravelry as Crochet Cakes. So I hope you've all been well. I hope you've done a lot of crafting. I have done a lot of crafting, a lot of podcast watching, a lot of cleaning, a lot of yarny goodness, and some many small adventures before we depart. And by we, I mean almost our entire family, to Scotland, which is really coming up hugely fast. Like, it just sneaked up on me. I haven't even packed. I have to do laundry, actually, in order to pack accordingly. But that is neither here nor there, because, as I mentioned, this is a crafting podcast. I guess before we actually begin with crafting channel news, I don't really have any. Still working on trying to get my sewing skills up to par so that I can open up my Etsy shop, because I will be opening up an Etsy shop. I've sourced some more fabric, and I've been scouring fabric.com because I really want to offer durable and original bags. Mom has, I think she's going to be uploading her second episode today, so I will include in the show notes, which you can find down below. I'm going to try and get back to putting the show notes on Ravelry as well, but for now you will find them down below, because I just think everybody watches the YouTube channel, so that way you can just click in the down bar and view everything I've talked about without actually having to go in and log in on Ravelry. So her channel is actually Mind and Muse. You can find it on YouTube. The first video she had posted it on her personal channel, but she since unblocked her actual podcast channel account, so yay. Right, so before we begin with finished objects, I actually have what I'm wearing, which you can't really see because weird angles, but I am wearing something that I had acquired a while back. I think I bought it in November or December from Enya Handmade. And I know you've heard me talk about her before because Yael, she sent me this gorgeous bag last year. And, well, I really love her yarn jewelry, and I was waiting for her to pop up another yarn jewelry that had the color mustard. So when she did, I just obviously had to buy it. Now, in her webpage, she does say you can use this as like when you're breastfeeding for like teethings and things, but I just wear it as yarn jewelry. So these are wooden beads that she has crocheted over, and I'm pretty sure some of it is wool because you can see the lovely halo, and some of it feels like cotton. So it's really, really fine stitching. You can't, and I absolutely love it. It's just so gorgeous. And it came packaged in this gorgeous, gorgeous bag. You can see the logo, that's the symbol, and okay. So I'm going to put the link down below. It's Enya Handmade. She wrote me a note in Spanish. And she also included some lovely, lovely stitch markers, some spinning, this is knitting, and this lovely little sheep, and these gorgeous, gorgeous embroidery. I think, pretty sure that's embroidery, and this has been crocheted over. These are gorgeous. So yeah, that is Enya Handmade. They make gorgeous project bags, as I just showed you. They make beautiful necklaces, and it's just a beautiful shop with beautiful women. I mean, I think Yael is such an empowered woman, and that to me is really important, you know? So please go check out their website if you haven't already. And yeah, see if you see anything you fancy. I fancy a lot of things from their website, honestly. But current state of income, I have to watch out for what I purchase. Just want to give you another sneak peek because I love these colors together. The teal, the mustard, the grey. As an autumn person, teal and mustard are right up my alley. Grey is not supposed to be, but I love grey and I really like wearing black, as you can see. So yeah, now that I've showed you what I'm wearing, we can safely shimmy along to finished objects, of which I have a lot. I have some knit finished objects, I've got some crochet finished objects, and I've got some sewing finished objects. So really, it's like a jack of all trades here. Let's start with some crochet. So in the previous podcast, if you watched episode 40, you'll remember, or you may not, that I talked about that I was crocheting some scrubbies, and I was using the scrubby yarn from Red Heart. And since then, the only thing I use to wash my dishes is that scrubby that I made with Red Heart yarn. I won't show it to you because I've been using it to wash dishes, so it's not too clean. But I love it. So that, of course, just led me to making more scrubbies. This one I made a bit different from the one I originally made because for that one I crocheted 2 circles and then I sewed them together. This one I held the yarn double, so it's a bit stiffer. But when you get it wet and you start washing with it, it softens up so much, and I absolutely love using it to wash my dishes and my sink. So it's lovely green color. I believe I had showed you this one already last week. I had showed you this. Actually, I don't think I had shown. I'm talking about you guys not remembering. I don't even remember what I talked about in the last podcast. Just in case, this is a washcloth or a dishcloth or hot pad, whatever you want it to be. It's made out of 100% cotton yarn. This one's Premier Yarns. Please ignore my nails. And this is Peaches and Cream yarn. I don't know the colors, but if you can see this lovely stitch, I got it out of the Vogue Dictionary of Crochet Stitches, which of course I had to buy because Emma talked about it again in one of her podcasts. And you can see how much I've been using it because it's full of notes and pieces of paper marking the stitches I've been using, the stitches I liked, stitches I want to use. So basically I've been using that stitch to make all my washcloths. Now I did want to make the washcloths learning new stitches, but to mass produce them, which is kind of I wanted to do because I wanted to take some of them to EYF to give as gifts. You really have to just speed things along. So yeah, here's another scrubby that I made. This is tulle and this is cotton yarn held double. I used a 6mm crochet hook to make this, and honestly I love it. Then I made another washcloth using that same stitch that I just showed you. It doesn't really have a name, but you basically make it by doing a single crochet and then a chain 1 double crochet in the same stitch for the beginning, and then you just do this single crochet, chain 1, double crochet into the chain space of the previous row. So I'm just making them 6x6 so they're square, and I've made 2 in the yellow, as you can see. I have to weave in the end for that one. And I made a cupcake scrubby because why wouldn't you make a cupcake scrubby? This one also has tulle in the bottom and then cotton yarn held double. I used a tutorial by Sorella here on YouTube to make the cupcake. She's got a granny square with a cupcake, and I just used it to just make the middle of the cupcake. I think there's some discrepancies between the written pattern and the tutorial, but you know, you could just figure it out essentially, and it's still a great place to start for that tutorial. So you can see I just slip stitched it together and it's great. I really like these. So these are the only ones I've been able to make, and I really had been stressing about it because I wanted to make one dishcloth and one scrubby to give them away as little gifts for people at EYF. But my birthday's coming up. I've had a really busy couple of weeks, job hunting, applying for jobs, and just basic everyday life things. And I was stressing myself out so much to try and make this. And, life's too short, right? And it's okay if I don't have gifts for everybody that I meet, isn't it? I mean, I don't know. I feel really guilty not having gifts for everybody I meet, but hopefully, if I ever get to go again, I will have already had a logo designed and some pins made that I could just take some pins for everybody. That'd be great. For the moment, I've got these lovely dishcloths. Some of them I will take to EYF, and I'll give them away, and to the people that I can, I guess. So this is crochet wise. This is the only thing I have finished, which is not too bad, is it? I mean, they take about 20 minutes to make the dishcloths. I do want to make more though because I find them really, really fun. So on to knit finished objects. I have cuéntalos, uno, dos. I have two. I'm calling this finished. Yes, I still have some ends to weave in, but I don't know what ends I still have to weave in because I have a bad habit of weaving in my ends and then just leaving the long tails. So I never know when I actually wove in my ends and when I haven't. So if you've watched the last podcast I did together with Mom, we both had a finished object. This is from Kayleen's Sock Emergency Kits. This was the color Potion of Despair. And originally I had intended to make a sock for my fiance in this yarn because he really loves this color and he's a huge fan of black. But measuring his foot, his heel would have had to start here. Pretty sure. I measured it and his heel would have had to start here. So he wouldn't actually have had a sock. And I know he prefers crew socks. So I just thought, I'll actually make him a pair of socks at some point. So this sock had already been finished. And let me take it off these gorgeous sock blockers that Mom got for me. And they're from The Knitting Left on Etsy. I will put the link in the description box below. And this is the other sock. Now, why am I calling this a finished object when it clearly does not have an afterthought heel like this one has? Well, I'm calling this a finished object because I was watching the Melissa Dawn Wool Artist podcast, and in her first podcast, she mentioned that she actually almost never puts heels on her knit socks because she finds that by not putting a heel and just having a tube with a toe and a cuff, you actually alternate which side you put at the top and which side you put at the bottom, so they tend to wear less. And I really wanted to give it a try. And I thought, what better way to give it a try than by having one sock with an afterthought heel and one sock with no heel. So I'll be wearing this around, London and Scotland, and I'll report back to you on how they felt and which sock I preferred. So these are finished. Just have to actually see if I wove in my ends. And then my second knit finished object is a pair of socks as well. Well, I already told you I had two pairs of socks, didn't I? So this is made with the Hedwig colorway. It's a DK weight yarn, so 75% superwash merino wool, 25% nylon. I got this one ages ago from Goosey Fibers. And she's in Massachusetts. She's okay, with the nor'easter and everything. I've been keeping up with her Instagram just to make sure that everything's fine over there. And with my cousin, I have a lot of family in Boston. Speaking of that, if anybody who watches this podcast got hit by the nor'easter. I hope you're okay. I was actually in Orlando with my cousin. She was on a business trip, and I just met up with her. She had to cancel her flight, and she lives in Connecticut, so they got hit pretty badly. Back to the socks. So this is the blueberry waffle sock pattern, and I did these in magic loop for the first time ever. So I used a 3.25 millimeter circular needle, 32-inch cable, and I used the Likey needles. I don't ever want to go back to using any other type of needles. I love the Likey needles. They are amazing. They feel so great, and they have a bit of a grip to them, but they're not as grippy as other wooden needles I've used, and they felt glorious in my hands, just buttery and soft and sturdy at the same time. I absolutely loved working with them. Magic loop, you know, I don't love it, I don't hate it, I think it's very useful. It was also very entertaining because I had to keep pushing it back and forth, so I didn't go to sleep as often as when I'm knitting just 9-inch circulars, because you're going around and around and around, and if you're just doing knit stitches, I kind of get sleepy doing that. So these just have a 2x2 rib, and you'll notice since this was the first sock I made using the magic loop, I kind of forgot that you had to continue knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and I started knit 2 again. Realized it when I got to the pattern, so the pattern just flows. One of the things I didn't like about working with magic loop is that I kept getting ladders, and now I can't find them. I know they're there because when I put them on I can see them. Ladders where the needles connected. For the heel, I actually found that my gauge was much looser, so I only did 23 rows of heel flap, and then I continued slip knit on the heel, and then I knit all the way. See there, you can see the ladder there. There you go. Then I just knit, and for the toe I just did knit 1 decrease until I got to 8 stitches. So that was the first one. I do have the second one here, because for this one I did not get only got ladders on this tiny bit part again for the when I was knitting my heel, but that was it. Here I did not do a knit slip. I didn't carry it all the way down to the heel turn. So that's another experiment that I'm going to be doing, which one wears better. I have an inkling that this one will wear much better than this one. So I just did the same thing. This time I actually did the whole 2x2 all the way around. I only got ladders in some small sections, so that doesn't really bother me. And I just knit the foot all the way across, and this is what I found weird. Because when I was doing magic loop, you know that when you have to place your needles to actually knit the heel flap, you kind of place them going this way instead of being this way. And I realize that makes no sense if you've never used magic loop, but trust me. So then for this sock, I put them back to their original position, which meant I basically had the needle in the front and the needle on the back. Here I kept the needle on the sides, so when I got to the toe decreases, my Kitchener is going like vertically instead of horizontally like it is here. But you know what? I think I actually like it going vertically because it doesn't open up as much. We'll see. So once again, this is a DK Weight Socks blueberry waffle pattern, and the yarn is Hedwig by Goosey Fibers. I was originally knitting these for the One Skein Wonderland cowl, which was hosted by Charlie from the Love Charlie Crochet podcast. Hi Charlie. And Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast. Started these on Christmas Eve. Finished them like a week ago. But they would have been perfect for the One Skein Wonder cowl because only had like 10 grams left over, I was able to put one stripe into my Harry Potter blanket. So yay for using up all yarn. So 2 socks finished, and gorgeous sock blockers. Doesn't get better than that, does it? So other finished objects that I've got are sewing related now. I do actually have some sewing works in progress, but I don't think I'll show those until they're finished objects. So this I had posted on Instagram. This was the bag that I just decided to embroider my name in. I made it for my birthday, and I just love this cupcake fabric. I don't remember where it was purchased. I know Mom purchased it, but I don't remember where. So I love that the frosting is kind of like chartreuse colored, and I had a little scrap of this left over, enough to make the bottom. And then I had this, because this gorgeous, they're Easter eggs, but honestly I think you could use this whenever you want it, and it's got glitter on it. Now this bag, the sewing of it was perfectly fine. I think I managed to sew it in like 45 minutes, but making this channel, let's just say a lot of crocheting was involved. And then it turned out to be too small to actually fit the ribbon that I had purchased. So I purchased some cord from Joann's. Turned out to be too small to actually even fit too thin to actually even fit the cord, because for this one I wanted to make the traditional drawstring, which you make by, if you have your ribbon or the string you've made yourself, you take half of it, pass it to the other side, then you take the other half of it and you pass it from this side to this side so that you can cinch it. Originally, I like to have a handle on my bags, so originally what I do is just take one piece of ribbon and leave something long enough for the handle, pass it, I sew it here, and then I just leave this so you can push against it and have a drawstring. But, I'm okay. I just wanted to try this out, since I was trying some new things. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. The funny thing is I was trying to make a sock bag. Pretty sure you can fit a shawl in here. In fact, I know you can fit a shawl in here. It'll fit one skein of yarn. And I also used medium weight stabilizer, so it's it's sturdier. And finally, to finish it, I just gave up trying all these different materials, and I just used some cotton yarn. Passed it through, and yay! So this one's got a 1.5 inch boxing, perfectly matched seams. The channels ended up on the seams, so that's perfect as well. And for me, I didn't put any pockets on the inside, but I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with this bag. In here, I should be putting something that I will be talking about in my Hook It segment. More finished sewing objects. These are some things that I want to gift at EYF. So I made a little teacup bag, exactly like I made mine, except this time I put quilter's batting on both sides, so it matches mine exactly. I made this to give away as well. So this is I call it like canvas, but they sell it as home decor fabric. It's 100% cotton, but it's kind of canvasy. So here you can see I sewed the ribbon, so you can just close it this way. I don't want to close it because it's all ironed and pretty. Inside we've got some Star Wars fabric. So that's a sock bag. I also made a little notions pouch, kind of a drawstring like notions pouch with the Star Wars fabric on the outside and just grey polka dots on the inside. You might say this doesn't really match, but the thinking behind it was in the Return of the Jedi, the little bears whose names I always forget, Ewoks? I think they're Ewoks. They fight with arrows, so that was my thinking behind it. yeah, so those are my sewing finished objects. I do have other 2 bags, but they'll be for the shop, so I'll be showing those when I've actually have accumulated a number, at least 10 bags that I can do on my first ever official opening. So I think that moves us on. That's it for finished objects. I don't think I finished anything else. So I'm going to move on to what am I hooked on, because I'm actually just looking around me, hooked on on 2 things actually, but one of them I'm going to be hooked on really soon because there's a story behind it. There's a story behind everything, isn't there? So yes, the first thing I'm going to talk about is something that you hadn't seen as a work in progress last time because I hadn't even crocheted it. But if you guys remember, I was toying with the idea of potentially starting a blog for the podcast, and I wanted to do some playing around and maybe do some designing. Well, I finally settled on a stitch that I liked. It looked simple enough to begin with, from the Stitch Dictionary, and it's that stitch right there at the top. It kind of looks like V-stitches, but to me, they look like sea stars. So, estrellas de mar, that's what they looked like. So that's the stitch I used. And I thought I was, just doing something simple. So the construction of like the home body sweater. And I was using this Stylecraft Special DK yarn, 100% acrylic in the mustard colorway. Because if you're going to design something for the first time, it should be in mustard. There has to be a law written somewhere about that. It should be in mustard. So this is what I've got. It's almost a finished object because I'm on Sleeve Island. This is what the stitch looks like. Now, why do I say there's a bit of a story behind it? Because, as I mentioned, yesterday was International Women's Day, and Emma from the Potter and Bloom podcast, she was having a sale on all her patterns, 50% off all of her patterns, no coupon code needed. So you just went in, added the patterns you wanted to your cart, paid for them, 50% off, automatically applied. So I, of course, went to get her new pattern, which is the Caravan of Love shawl, and it offers both a crochet version and a knit version. Now, I bought this pattern because I really wanted to make the knit version of it. I think Emma said it was all in garter stitch, and she has such a love for garter stitch and the simplicity of it and the squishiness of it that I really wanted to try knitting something completely using garter stitch. So that's why I bought the Caravan of Love shawl. Right. I also bought the Conquer mitts because they looked simple enough, and I thought maybe I could make a pair of mitts for myself. Really fast mitts. That all brings me up to the story. So I was just browsing her patterns, and she's got a top called, I'll insert the name because I don't remember what it's called. But when I looked at it, I was like, that seems familiar. So when I opened it, it's the exact same stitch. And we both had the same idea. Make 2 rectangles, sew them together. You've got yourself a blouse, don't you? Except I'm adding sleeves to mine. So this puts me in a weird position of, do I actually tell you how I made this? Because there's already a pattern out there for sale that will probably be saying the same thing I'm going to be saying. So it puts me in a bit of a conundrum. So what I decided to do was just tell you maybe the differences between, or I guess tell you what I did to make the pattern my own, if that makes sense. So what I did to make the pattern my own is I essentially know that if I want a reasonably fit crochet garment, it should be 14 inches across. So all around 28 inches for the waist. and I wanted something that was a little bit wider just to make it cozier, comfy, you know, something you want to snuggle up into. So I measured it, and I wanted to have between 16 to 17 inches when I started. I think this one turned out to be 17 and a half inches without blocking the rectangle, and that was fine by me. So the other thing I also did was that where my waist started, I started doing waist shaping. And the waist shaping that I did was using a smaller hook than the one I was using to crochet the shirt up. So in order to crochet the blouse, I was using a hook, 5mm hook. This is actually a new acquisition. I had never tried tulip hooks before, but Melissa from the Melissa, oh my god, Melissa, I'm sorry, I always forget the name. It's Melissa Dawn Wool Artist, right? Yes. So yeah, she talks about tulip hooks a lot, and I just wanted to give it a go. Really not a fan that your only options are pink and black, but this was a very comfortable hook to use. So I was using the 5mm for the main body, and then for the waist shaping I switched to a 4.5mm just to give it a slight waist shaping. Hindsight, I could have probably used maybe a 4mm, which is the recommended hook size for the yarn. And then once I sewed it up, I sewed it by doing single crocheting 18 stitches together, leaving 25 blank, and single crocheting another 18 stitches. Now to do a bit of neck shaping, I did half double crochets in these 25 stitches and double crochets the rest of the stitching. Also, I didn't completely follow the stitch pattern because the stitch pattern has you do only two rows of double crochets. I did 3. I originally wanted to do 4, but 3 was fine. Then I started playing around, and I really like when you crochet a garment that you get when you have to do a sleeve cap. I think you get a much better fit than if you just have your sleeve cap come up from the garment. So I was playing around. I even did kind of like a mini tutorial of how I was picking up my stitches and doing this cap sleeve. But I was getting this bump, so I was playing around trying to eliminate the bump. Maybe what I probably will do next time is just do a series of short rows to bring the cap sleeve make the cap sleeve just a bit lower, and then pick up my stitches. But then I realized the shirt kind of comes off here, for me anyway, so that essentially is a sleeve cap. So what I did on the other side, when I picked up the stitches, I picked up about 13 stitches here where I did half double crochets, and then right at the top I did double crochets, and I did that for 2 rows. I picked up 44 or 45 stitches, and then I took it down to 40 because I get a good fit with the 40 stitch sleeve. So that's what I did, and I'm still working on the sleeve. I did want these to have 3/4 or long sleeves because I wanted something cozier. Originally I was working on it really fast because I wanted to get the design out there, and it was going to be a free one because I was just going to put the notes on how I constructed it to give you an idea. But since there is already a pattern out there from the lovely Emma, I'm just going to take my time doing this now, and I'm not going to rush it, because this was another thing I was rushing to get finished for my trip to London and Scotland. It was making this. I really wanted to wear it over there, so I was rushing in the making of it. But I was still, ironically, this was something that I was rushing through, but I was really enjoying the making of it, if that makes sense. So now I'll just take my time. I will not have it finished for my trip to London and Scotland, but I can wear it around the apartment. And we've been having 40-degree mornings here in Florida, so that's good, right? I can wear all the crochet. So the other thing I'm hooked on, the other object I am hooked on, is actually something that I had mentioned I was going to start the last time. Had I mentioned that I was going to yeah, I'm pretty sure I mentioned it. Or if not, I posted a picture on Instagram that I was going to make it. What I'm realizing with all these makes is that I am actually living up to the fortune cookie that I chose. Because the fortune cookie talked about making a lot of changes before settling in satisfactorily on one thing. And I feel that's where my crochet is at the moment. I am trying a lot of different things, starting a lot of different projects. Everything's catching my attention, but I have not settled satisfactorily on anything. And now that I say that, I realize that I did not bring my Spicier Life blanket to show you. That is also something I'm hooked on. But I've stopped working on it because I was waiting for some cream colored yarn to arrive, because when Mom placed the order for the Jaipur color set from Wool Warehouse. So, as a side note, you can find the actual color packs from, I believe it's Black Sheep Wools. I believe it's that. But their shipping was a bit criminal. So I went over to Wool Warehouse, purchased all the same colors, and I was waiting for them to arrive. They did, except the cream color did not arrive, and it still hasn't arrived, and it's been weeks. I'm not kidding, it's been weeks since I've been waiting for it to arrive. So I just decided to substitute some of the mustard for the cream that I'm supposed to be using in the Spicier Life blanket. And I've worked on it a bit, but I haven't given it my full attention because I got distracted by the garment I was designing. I'm still loving it. And in case you don't know, the Spicier Life blanket was a cowl that was hosted by Sandra Paul from the Cherry Heart podcast and Cherry Heart everywhere. And if you don't know her, then you should. It's just like Crafternoon Treats and Faye from the Crochet Circle podcast, and Deanne from Addie Day Designs, and Rosina from Scenes and Roger, and Emma from Potter and Bloom. All these crochet designers you should know. And I'm adding to my list of crochet designers Hannah from the Cozy Cottage Crochet podcast. Okay, Hannah, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. I do not know why I have such issues saying your podcast name. I don't know. But anyway, Hannah released her first pattern design, and it's called the Treasure Island Shawl. It's a one skein shawl. It's something that she had designed for the One Skein Wonderland cowl, and she's actually come out with it now. So go check it out. I'll put the link below as well. She very, very, very kindly gifted the pattern to me, and I can't wait to get started. But I do have to wait a bit to get started. I think I'm undecided about that shawl. Should I make it in yarn that I'm okay giving away for Christmas, or should I be greedy and make it in a camel silk blend that I've been hoarding, that was gifted to me by Pink Hen Crochet? Decisions. Or, ¿por qué no los dos? Why don't I just make 2 or 3? But it's a nice segue of shawls, because what I'm actually working on is the Moonlit Shawl by Sandra from Cherry Heart. And I won't show you this because I just printed out the pattern. But I'm sure you know what it looks like, and if not, I'll put the link below so you can check it out. It's the Moonlit Shawl. And I am making it in a yarn I had bought in November for Black Friday from Forbidden Woolery. And she's now changed her name. She's Forbidden Co., I believe. She did a rebranding. But the colorway was this. Any Outlander fans out there? Yes. Or as Faye calls it, 50 Shades of Celt. I don't... It always makes me laugh when Faye calls it 50 Shades of Celt. I understand where you're coming from, Faye. But anyway, it's this gorgeous... It kind of looks a bit like camo, doesn't it? But it's sparkly camo. And it's got so many tones of green and brown. And there's even some blues in here. So this is based on the kilt that Jamie wears, because in case you've never watched Outlander, Jamie's the main character and he's from Clan Fraser. So this is where I'm at with the shawl. This is, I have to say, it's such a clever construction. It's meant to be a shallow crescent shawl, and I think it's such a clever construction. I don't get bored working on it because the way Sandra has designed it, it's basically in 4 pattern repeats and they switch every so often. So the longest repeat is your first increase, and I'm almost up to the end of my 2nd increases and I'm loving it. I have a hard time putting it down. This has been the work of 2 days. Well, not, 48 hours. Maybe a couple hours here and there. I started this Thursday, the 1st of March. And that's when I did up till here. In like 30 minutes. And this was yesterday when I picked it up again. And I have a hard time putting it down when I'm crocheting on it. I just think one more row, one more pattern repeat, one more pattern repeat. And I'm loving it. This is another one of those things I was pressuring myself to finish for the trip to Scotland because it's Clan Fraser. Right? So, Clan from Scotland. I have to take it to Scotland. And also, it was patterned by Sandra, and since she's not going to EYF this year, that I wanted to, in a non-stockery way, take a little, piece of her, keep her in my thoughts for EYF because I know she really wanted to go. So that was my way of doing that. Hopefully I can finish it, and if not, hopefully I can finish it on the plane. It's a small enough project that I don't mind taking it on the plane. And I'm using a recommended hook for that. I honestly didn't do a gauge swatch. It's probably a bad thing. But she does say to use a generous skein of yarn. And this one has 495 yards, 4 ounces. So it's a bigger hank than you would usually find. Right now it's a bigger cake than you would usually find. And other than the Spice Your Life blanket, which I already mentioned, and the embroidery hoop, which I have yet to work on, that is all I am hooked on. So I think that could also potentially bring us up to Hook It. Now, for Hook It, I had mentioned that I had made this for my birthday. This was a sewing finish object, and inside will be living the pair of crochet socks that Mom has designed. She sent me a very rough draft of the pattern so I could test it out, and I'm going to be making it from a sock blank. I don't actually have a sock blank with me, but let me just go grab it and show you. Right, so this is the sock blank that I will be using to make Mom's socks. She called them the My Sweet Socks, if I am not mistaken. This is the watermelon sock blank from Kayleen that Mom gifted me for Christmas. So I think it's going to be a great pattern with lovely yarn that Mom gifted to me, and it's all going to be living in my cupcake bag. And I should be taking this to EYF. That will be the project I take. Right, so that's for the hook it segment, and I've also got a bit of knitting to show you because Faye's different designer cowl already started, and I have literally cast on. I posted a picture of this on Instagram because the different designer, it's someone whose works I've been admiring for a while, but I never got the nerve to actually try it because I think it's way above me, out of my league. And this is the Angel Hat Turban by Poison Girls. So yeah, I'm going to be making that turban. I've literally cast it on, but it's... oh boy, I need to count my stitches to make sure I didn't drop any stitches. I was using a DPN. I ordered a circular knitting needle, which already arrived, because you have to increase, and this is already at its limit. I wanted a pair of straight needles, 2.75. They were hard to come by, so I just bought circulars, and I'm going to be using them as straight needles. I'm gonna have to count my stitches again to make sure I didn't drop any stitches. But this is gorgeous yarn that I've been eyeing this pattern for so long that I bought this a year ago with the intention of making that pattern. This is from Diabolical Yarns on Etsy, and it's the Fred colorway. It's her Tenacious Tencel sock yarn, but it doesn't feel as lofty or as bouncy as Lolo Did It's sock yarn. Lolo Did It sock yarn feels a lot bouncier. So I have nothing to show for that because I've literally just cast it on and done the first row of ribbing. So there's not much to share there. But maybe I'll take this to EYF once I get it on the circular needles, and we can then say I'm moving up in the knitting world, trying all these skills. So yeah, that is the end of the Yarny Makes, and that just kind of brings me up to a segment of YouTube TV, because I said I've been watching a lot of podcasts, and a lot of new crochet podcasts have been popping up. A podcast that I've been watching for a while, but I'm not sure if I've mentioned, is the Earl Grey Crochet podcast, hosted by Elizabeth, who is from Australia. She does a monthly catch-up with her makes. She just posted one yesterday or the day before yesterday, I believe, and I just love seeing what she's working on. And I love the fact that she's from Australia and that I'm watching podcasters from all over the world, not just the UK. Speaking of podcasters from all over the world, I recently started watching the Crafty Crochet Girl podcast, which is hosted by the lovely Heidi from Norway. And you might possibly know her. I mentioned her in my previous episode because she designed a crochet sock, and she's Heklepikken, which is the Norway name for for crochet girl, I believe. I might be wrong, or I might be right. 50-50 chance. So anyway, it's my first podcast from Norway, and it's really lovely to see what yarns she gets and the magazines that she shows, because Norway is of course famous for their Fair Isle, for their knitty designs. Is it Fair Isle or is it stranded color work? As you can see, I am a very organized person. And the other podcast that I've been watching is the Melissa Dawn Wool Artist podcast. I love her channel because not only does she podcast, I think she's got did you just recently do episode 3, Melissa? I think you did. But she also does felting tutorials, and she's been doing some crochet stitches tutorial as well, which is great because those crochet stitches are basically dishcloths, so you can join her dishcloth along, I guess we can call it. And she is also going to be hosting a felt along. The way she's going to be doing that felt along is she's going to be picking a design that beginners can do, and she's going to be doing some videos of the materials you need to gather for your felting, and we're basically just going to be felting together. I'm really interested in this, but of course it means I do have to purchase, they're the same thing, materials to participate in this felt along. But as I told my boyfriend when my huge order of yarn arrived from Wool Warehouse, this is not yarn, this is a blanket. So yeah, she's going to be hosting that felt along, and I think it's amazing. I'm always interested in learning new crafts, way too interested if you ask me. And her wool paintings they're just so amazing. I think they're one of the reasons I actually want to at least have a part-time job so I can buy her wool paintings, because I love them. I love them. Mom bought one and it's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. And our apartment right now, as you can see, is pretty bare, so I do want to get some gorgeous handmade paintings. We'll see. But not only does Melissa sell wool paintings, she's also a yarn dyer. And she's got some gorgeous colorway. Now, I thought I had missed her update, but if you go to her website, which I will link in the show notes below, she has so many beautiful colorways still left over, and lots of minis. So if you're a person who likes minis, or maybe you want to try, dip your toes into want to try out a new dyer, then you could always do it by purchasing minis. They're all gorgeous colorways, but I've been trying to save my pennies because I will be going to EYF, and even though I do have a shopping list for EYF, I want to be reasonable. But if I were not being reasonable, I would have purchased about garment quantities of yarn from her website, which I think is great. And it's great that I'm talking about new indie dyers and what they're up to, because this brings us to a previously known segment called Acquisitions, but I am naming it now Spreading the Love, because that's what I feel podcasts are about. Okay, we mention what we buy, but really we're just trying to spread the love by supporting local artists, because I think anybody who dyes yarn is kind of an artist, and anybody who paints in wool like Melissa is an artist. So yes, just spreading the love and letting people know about all these new dyers that otherwise you may not have come across. So I've got a couple of acquisitions. 2 of them are yarn related, and one of them is a book. I think I'll start with the yarn, because since I was mentioning Melissa's yarn, I'll start with this one. This is a new to me podcast also, which I forgot to mention. Her podcast is Emmy Couture on YouTube. She also dyes yarn and sews project bags. She's got her own website, so you can see it here, Emmy Couture Yarns. And these are not colors that I usually go for. They're a bit, they're not really pastel-y, but I don't know. But this aqua just looked so beautiful, and it's in the sport weight, as you can see, and I just loved it. I ordered 2 of these because at least I could get a crop top out of it, and I'm all about the garments, so it's funny saying that, because Ali from the Little Drops of Wonderful podcast, who is amazing, and if you've never watched her podcast, you should go watch it. She was mentioning in her previous podcast that I'm a garment maker, and when she had mentioned that, I literally had no garment on my hook. So of course I had to start one, and that's how the mustard top came about. So yeah, it's just a little side note. So I purchased 2 hanks of these so I could potentially make a crop top at least. And it feels so squishy, and it's just lovely. It's called Unicorn Tails, and you could actually use it to make socks, but I'm not such a sock knitter, so I'm going to be making a garment because that's my thing. So the other thing that happened while I was in Orlando is that I walked into a shop called The Black Sheep, and that's where I purchased my tulip crochet hook from. And it was funny because she asked me if I was there for the yarn crawl, and I'm like, yarn crawl? Hello? Where? So she gave me my passport, and these are all the yarn shops that are, I guess, near-ish to me. The Black Sheep is actually a needlepoint shop. Even if you are not into needlepoint, but you embroider, you should, or cross stitch, you should go visit their shop. It's run by these beautiful, friendly, lovely ladies. Seriously, they're so friendly. And I am intrigued by needlepoint now. And especially because when I walked into the shop, one of the ladies, she was working on needlepoint, and it was a Darth Vader needlepoint. She said it was for her grandson. I thought it was the most adorable thing ever. This is actually the store that's closest to me. It's in Coco. It's about 30 minutes away from where I live currently. But you've also got Knit, which is in Longwood, Florida. This is what and this one's also in very close to the Black Sheep. So in the Black Sheep, I was not going to purchase yarn, but I did because I was with my cousin and I found this. This was the yarn that they dyed, that it's called Emma's Yarn, and it's dyed by the daughter of the owner of Four Pearls Yarn Shop. I believe she's 16, I think. But she dyed up this colorway for the crawl. It's called 2018 Orange Blossom Yarn Crawl. And these are just such gorgeous fall colors. And my cousin was like, you should crochet yourself a shawl for your wedding because they kind of look like my wedding colors, don't they? Yeah. So this is super silky, 80% superwash merino, 20% silk, 100 grams, 400 yards. That's what I purchased at the Black Sheep. And it was just interesting to know that, you know, I've got these amazing shops next to me. Like I said, the closest one is that one. But I want to go back to the Black Sheep just because those ladies are so friendly. And they've got all kinds of yarn. So if you're near-ish to Orlando, I'm about an hour and a half away from Orlando. I would still drive there if I wanted really specialized thread for my embroidery. I would go there. The other thing that I talked about in spreading the love, let's see, I mentioned Ali, I mentioned my yarn podcast, I mentioned Melissa, I mentioned Emiya Handmade. But I also purchased this copy. I've been meaning to purchase it for a while, and the reason I purchased it is because I wanted to try making one of these as the top for my wedding dress. Now, this is, I think it's a 2015 version. It's not, it's got beautiful layouts, pictures and everything. But my first impression is that this book is just written for somebody who's already very familiar with everything. Because, let's say, she uses Rowan Summerlight in all the projects, but she doesn't tell you what material Rowan Summerlight is made of. And is it a fingering weight? Is it a DK weight? I mean, it's called Summerlight, but it could potentially be DK weight. I know it's not. But my thing is that you have to actually look up what the yarn is. You have to be familiar with the way things work, because she is not at all she's very stingy with her words, is the word I'm looking for. So that's my first impression of it, that she is very stingy. And for example, you know, she just says back and front, both alike. Okay? But she doesn't speak about the basic construction. I like patterns that tell me about the basic construction of my tops. And, you know, are they worked top down? Are they worked in pieces? Obviously, I can assume they're worked in pieces because they say back and front, both alike, lower body, sleeves, side bands, making it up. You know, but shoulder straps, cuff edges. But I just feel she's very stingy with her words. So I feel this is written for somebody who's familiar with UK yarns and who's also familiar with the way she already writes her patterns. This is a book by Marie Woolen. I got it off of the Daremore's website. Very reasonably priced, very reasonable shipping, and yeah, I'm very happy with the purchase. Except for what I mentioned, that I think she's a bit stingy, and honestly I feel the book is written for UK based crocheters. But I will tell you more on that when I've actually made something from it. I feel that this podcast episode is ridiculously long, but I just had so much to talk to you about because I have so much time on my hands. Yep, I believe that is it for today's episode. That better be it, because I feel I've just chatted on forever and ever and ever. But the next episode will not actually be an episode. I think Mom and I will film vlogs while we're together on our trip, and we'll just put them all together and maybe do a little introduction at the beginning and say goodbye at the end, but it won't be a proper episode. So I really wanted to cover everything I've been working on, and if you see the mess around me, although I've been working on a lot of things. So yes, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm just trying to think if there's anything I really want to mention that I've forgotten, because as if I haven't waffled on enough. Oh, I did mention in the previous podcast that I would be telling you guys what yarns I want for my wedding flowers. I haven't looked into it. I have one picked out. It's Pumpkin by Karen Simply Soft. Their colorway is really, that pumpkin colorway is really like a coppery golden pumpkin. So if you're in the States, I think that would be a great color for the orange. I haven't picked a teal yet. I know Hannah, she mentioned that Karen also carry a very pretty teal. So I think that'll be interesting. I'm gonna look up their colorways, and I thought, just to make it easy for the people, you know, that volunteered from the UK, I'll probably look up some Stylecraft, something that's easy. I want to have at least 3 yarn companies that are easily accessible to everybody, so they can pick out yarn from. Or if you find, say in Australia, acrylic yarn that's similar to the colors I'm describing, just send me a picture, and yeah, we'll coordinate. On that note, thank you so much for everybody who just volunteered to help me crochet bomb my wedding. That means so much to know that we're part of such a loving community. And it having been International Women's Day yesterday, I believe it speaks to me even more that empowered women can keep empowering women and encouraging them and supporting them. Because I think that's what crafting should be about. It should be about supporting everybody and spreading love, because love is such a simple thing to give, but we take it for granted, don't we? So on that note, I will see you next time after EYF, really after EYF, for a actual podcast. And yes, thank you so much for joining me today. If you liked, then please hit the like button. If you would like to keep up to date, then subscribe if you haven't done so already. You can follow me on Instagram, as I mentioned, and just come join the crafting fun. I love it when you guys comment because it means I'm not just talking to a camera. Oh, right now I've got a picture to remind me that I'm not just talking to my camera, but it'd be great if you just comment and we could interact more that way. I do read all the comments and I do try to reply to everybody. So yeah, now I'm just rambling. So there's only one thing left to say, and that is happy crafting. Bye!